Hello, and welcome back to Happy Meat and Fit Podcast. I'm your host, Taylor. I'm going to talk about pesticides, where to source your produce, and why I'm starting a garden today. Let's do a little catch up. And, okay, so first things first, the PFAs, the forever pesticides, everything already kind of started sending me down a little bit of a spiral. But if you have been following me for the past couple of months, you also know I've been doing a gut protocol. And so while also obviously eating fruits and vegetables is important, and most people are not eating nearly enough. This gut protocol basically took everything away from me, everything. And so I have been really focusing on eating not just to hit your macros or to hit your calorie and protein goal, but for health, for vitamins and minerals and fiber, and primarily fiber, and making sure that you're having enough so that digestion and gut health and everything can be proper. And so ironically, I've just been eating a lot of produce lately and then getting more into just wanting to also eliminate any sort of toxins and endocrine disruptors, especially because I have PCOS. So I've been doing things like, making sure that I'm wearing cotton and, having water filters on everything and being mindful of the type of cleaners that I'm buying and trying to get non-tox and like my sheets and like everything. And pesticides is obviously like a huge one. And so I already knew I wanted to start a garden. And I just thought it would be something really good for me to also get outside, have some vitamin D. But anyways, I decided to go to this gardening class, local here in the Bay Area, and it was free. And obviously some of it was like kind of a sales pitch because they were trying to get you to like use their services because they have tons of gardening classes. They also have a service where essentially they come and grow and maintain your garden for you. And so obviously keeping that in mind and that there's going to be some level of bias here within the presentation itself, I, took all of the notes throughout the entire thing. I have pages and pages of notes. But then I also tried to kind of fact check some of it, and then also decided to do some of my own research as well. And I created a little carousel that kind of breaks a lot of this down so that you can save it. But I'm going to post that on my Instagram later, but I figured I'd be able to do kind of a deeper dive here, and then you can go back and save the carousel. So I'm just pulling it up for notes. But okay, so essentially the first kind of things that he was talking about was obviously how to garden. And so it's going to be foolproof. I've been watching a ton of YouTube videos and lots and lots and lots of videos, and it's kind of hit or miss. You have to keep in mind that people live in different climates, and so we all have a different zone. So you have to go online and look up what zone that you're in and what type of soil and agriculture or whatever of your local area. So that's step one. So you have to keep that in mind when you have all of your crops. And then also you have to keep in mind the seasons of things. And so then it's are you going to plant it directly into the ground, or are you going to have a garden bed? And so there were so many questions. I was taking so many notes and watching so many people. And this way that he explained it is the most replicable. Okay, for any climate, any location, and he is a scientist, and so they have studied the best types of soils and fertilizers and conditions and irrigation systems, and through all of their own gardening and monitoring other clients, just the best products that last the longest and is the best quality, but primarily all organic, and also makes it as easy as possible for beginners so that it's basically dummy foolproof, which we love. And so I'm going to start that journey. I found some garden beds on Facebook Marketplace, so highly recommend doing that. The metal ones are what he recommended, not using the wood ones. And so I already have those, and then all of the list of everything that he said I have in my Amazon cart, and a couple other things were from Home Depot, and it's about $700. So obviously it is an investment, but if you think about it, you're going to save that money in the long run by not having to buy a lot of that produce. And he said something about like each garden bed being able to have like 200 pounds of produce a month or something crazy, like something crazy where like you're picking it and eating it like daily, and you're having so much excess that you can like give it to family and friends, give it to the neighbor, sell it on the street, who knows. But anyways, like you're going to be able to produce a lot out of just like 1 to 2 garden beds, which is really exciting. And so obviously like also researching what time of year is the best for each. Are you gonna, start the little seed and, sprout it yourself, or are you just gonna buy the starters? He recommends the starters and like all that information. And so I'm gonna be taking you guys along. Don't you worry. I've been prepping the backyard for it and everything. We're going on vacation in a few weeks, and so it's going to take us some time to just like buy all the stuff and then kind of get started when we get back. And I'm going to be documenting everything. I'll like link everything for everyone and take you guys all along on the process. So if you by the end of this are inspired to start your gardening journey, please follow along for more. Like I'm genuinely like so excited and going to share everything I learned with everyone. But anyways, he started off this like class by saying the importance of why we should be all gardening. And he was kind of saying that like our soil as it is in America has like an expiration date, and that we're going to like run out of apparently like good soil. And so it's like a limited resource right now. And so like for farming. And so we need to take kind of matters into our own hands. He essentially described that we're in like a food crisis, and it was very concerning. And there's been like estimates that we have like 60 years left, 30 years left. I don't really know, but it is like a finite resource of like good quality soil. Obviously, I'm not an expert. I'm not going to sit here and like know all of the jargon and terms right now. I'm just trying to get the message out of what I learned in the Spark notes, the bullet points. So that was concerning. And then obviously all the pesticides and everything like that, and just wanting to be like more in control of our food and where it's coming from because of the toxins and things that we can be exposed to. And so I ended up doing my own research as well into pesticides and everything. And so the USDA essentially has like regulations and everything. And a lot of this is at the federal level. So keep that in mind. This is for the entire US. And the EWG did an analysis on food and everything, and like ran tests, and actually we're trying to see, what pesticides came up when they tested these crops, and this data just came out in 2026, so this is like the latest and greatest data. And essentially what they found was 75% of non-organic produce samples, so non-organic, had detectable pesticide residue after rinsing. And so essentially these pesticides are supposed to be able to be rinsed off, and that makes it like less toxic because it's supposed to be able to be rinsed off. Hey, John. I got people popping up in the live. But essentially, if it doesn't get washed off, then now you're exposed to the toxins of the pesticides. 96% of the dirty dozen produce samples had residue, and then 203 different types of pesticides came across 12 different crops. So on 12 different crop samples, there was over 203 pesticides used. And I saw in my research that a lot of these pesticides are only tested one at a time. And so their findings, or basically like threshold for safe use, is determined based off of just the use of that one single pesticide and not a combination of all of them working together. Think of it as like a medication. You're not supposed to be sitting here and like mixing a bunch of medications, because they can kind of like interact and, counteract one another and have different symptoms. So just take that information how you will, or whatever. And so washing the produce doesn't really remove all of the pesticides and exposure, and some of it can also be actually absorbed into the plant or produce itself, and it is not just surface level. And so that's also something to mention. And so diving into the PFAs, aka the forever chemicals. These chemicals do not break down in your body or in the environment, hence the name forever chemicals. Very concerning. And 3 out of 10 most commonly detected pesticides now meet the official PFAS definition. One of them showed up on nearly 90% of their samples they took of peaches and plums. PFAS are associated with immune effects, developmental effects, altered cholesterol, cancer, and reproductive effects. And I also want to point out that this isn't just in our produce itself. It can be found in our water, hence needing water filters and like the correct kind. Our food packaging, consumer products, environmental contamination, like it's not just used on our food. And so like I believe that stronger continued monitoring and regulation on this is essential. And the fact that like we kind of saw that things are being passed to loosen up restrictions on that is concerning me quite a bit. And the funding and the resources that go into kind of checking and balancing, right? Because they can put out those rules and regulations, but people don't necessarily follow them. And if we're not having people to babysit and monitor and ensure that they're following through, that's a huge concern. And we're getting rid of a lot of that funding right now currently, which is a huge concern for me and should be a concern for you. So other things that pesticides have been linked to, neurological effects, reproductive and developmental effects, cancer, liver, kidney toxicity, respiratory effects, immune effects, endocrine disruption. Endocrine disruption is important for hormones and everything. If you're on a hormone journey, PCOS journey, wanted to note that. And so some good news amidst all the bad news is that most of the food are below the regulatory limits, which is good. But once again, like the mixture of these different chemicals together is kind of an unknown. The chronic effects are kind of unknown. And then it is known that women who are pregnant and children are especially susceptible, and that there's even stricter regulations on usage consumption of produce and pesticides for pregnant women and children. But this is the first I've heard of that. And so I don't know if you knew about that, but I didn't know about that. And that's a huge concern because I don't think that there's enough education around that. And also like that means that no one's really like abiding by that when they're especially vulnerable, which is concerning. For my page's sake, like my Instagram, if you will, my content, I mostly primarily focus on, holistic health and hormone health and PCOS and all of that. So these endocrine disruptors can interfere with your hormone production and signaling in your metabolism and clearance of these. And so when your body produces hormones, your body also needs to be able to like clear them out, detoxify. And so endocrine disruptors can prevent that from happening. And so pesticides aren't the only endocrine disruptors. That's why I was telling you guys about like non-tox products and things like that, because there's endocrine disruptors within a lot of our products that we consume, the clothes that we wear, and product like skincare, perfume, anything with a scent, like all of that is like kind of sketchy, and non-tox is ideal. Candles, all those things. But what I found especially interesting is that some research studies actually linked pesticides to lower sperm quality in men. Talking about the men for a second. And basically it says reduced motility and impaired sperm DNA integrity in men. So once again, endocrine disruptor also does affect men, not just women. And then they also found, like research found that pesticides altered ovarian function and markers of ovarian reserve in women. And our ovaries and all of that, ovulation is how we make babies, very important. So I wanted to just kind of take a pause there. Like if you are navigating PCOS, and maybe you don't have full-blown PCOS, but irregular cycles or fertility challenges, it is recommended to minimize any unnecessary exposure to any endocrine disruptors wherever possible. And once again, I'm not trying to tell you to panic or anything like that. It's just to inform you so that you can be intentional where you can. And when you're purchasing things, to just choose, the better, healthier option. So once again, this also like PSA, disclaimer, attention, This is not a reason to stop eating fruits and vegetables. Eating produce, eating whole foods, eating real food, not packaged, not processed, anything like that, is still a million times better. Like eating produce and whole foods is a million times better than anything else that you'll put into your body. And the exposure to these pesticides or anything does not outweigh that on a pros and cons list. We still need to implement them. And it's one of the best things that you can do for your health. The goal is not to fear the produce. It's to reduce the unnecessary exposure to the toxins and all of that while consuming a nutrient-dense diet. So once again, I'm just sharing all of this so that you can learn how to best source your own food and make your own decisions, and not to, overwhelm you, but just help you be more informed and more intentional. And so ranking this in, from least recommended to what's the best. Here we go. For when you're buying your produce, your fruits, your veggies. Buy organic wherever you can. Now, there is technically a list that has been put out by the EWG of the Dirty Dozen. This is essentially the top 12 highest ranking in pesticides exposure when they did the testing. Like these 12, the Dirty Dozen, are the dirtiest, if you will. So obviously buying organic is expensive. So if you cannot afford organic all the time, this is kind of like the step one of like buy the regular schmegular. But if you can buy organic in just these top 12, then you're going to be better off than not, essentially. And so the list of the 12 are spinach, kale, grapes, nectarines, peaches, cherries, apples, blackberries, pears, potatoes, blueberries, strawberries, and then notably after, so not just the Dirty Dozen, they added 2 more, was green beans and any like bell peppers or hot peppers. Once again, this is all public information. You can just look it up, but just wanted to throw that out there. So if you can't buy all organic, at least prioritize organic there where you can. And so the thing with organic is they essentially still can use pesticides, but there's better limits, and it does prohibit synthetic waxes and coatings. And so that's what's used to kind of like preserve it longer, from my understanding. So once again, still some pesticides exposure, but reduced limits, but there's not going to be any waxes and coating on it, which is a huge plus. Another thing that the gardening guy class pointed out was that in our grocery stores, food, by the time that it gets to us, through transit and storage, the supply chain, if you will, a lot of the food can be 6 to 12 months old by the time that we get it. I tried to fact check this, and it did say that like this isn't the case for every single produce item. Like for example, apples are only in season one time a year, but they're sold year round. So all of our apples are produced at one point in the year and then just saved and distributed throughout the year. How scary is that? But that's not the same thing for all fruits and vegetables. But but no matter what, the store is going to be like the oldest form because it does have to go through the supply chain. And so some of it, if locally sourced, can be obviously fresher, a week, 2 weeks old, but a lot of it can be like months up to a year old, which is crazy. He did say, and I tried to fact check this and I couldn't really find anything on it besides like the hard numbers. Harley, the hard numbers are the issue here. Hey, come here. Oh my gosh, they only want to bark when I'm literally on live. Girls, Me walking away. Get in here. You're ruining my live. You're ruining mommy's live. And my podcast. Okay, I'm back. I was talking about buying organic. I'm not editing these anymore, by the way, so you have to bear with me. This is just the raw and real. Oh, Whole Foods. He was saying that Whole Foods, the food is roughly like 120 days old. So the hard number of like 120 days was hard for me to like specifically fact check, but I did find that Whole Foods has higher standards in terms of organic and like actually making sure it's certified organic. And then they also typically locally source their food. And so somewhere here like California, where we have a bunch of agriculture, a lot of it's going to be more local, but I don't know if that's the same for all states. So like something to keep in mind. It's been he was saying, and I was kind of finding that like Whole Foods is the best typical like grocery store to source your food from, if you will. But anyways, if you can't get organic and you're balling on a budget and that's just not in the cards right now, the best thing that you can do, so this is number 2 on the list, is getting organic frozen foods, or just regular frozen foods for your fruits and veggies. And reason being is that they're frozen right after harvest. So they're literally picked and then frozen right away, locking in all of the nutrients. And so we love that. And also that's going to reduce like the need for like the waxes, the coatings, and the things to preserve it, right? And so frozen is going to be your bestie there in terms of quality. Third, next best thing that you could do, farmer's market. And so he was saying that the farmer's market, all of the food is like really, really fresh. It's like the freshest that you can go, typically out of your house to go buy, because a lot of it they harvested either like that day or a couple days ago or like a week max, and then they pack it all up and bring it. And he also did say like most of them are organic and or like use either like minimal or no pesticides, but you can also ask, because these are all individual farms, and so you can ask the people there like, what are your spray practices? Do you use spray? Is it truly organic? And they'll tell you. So farmers market is going to be like ideal. Like if you can wait and get all of your food, once a week at the farmers market or whatever, that would be once again ideal. And the quality, I will say, is like night and day. Like right after this gardening class, I went into the farmer's market and I got all of it, my produce for the week. And then versus I shop at Whole Foods, versus even Whole Foods, the quality was like night and day. Like you could see it, like the actual quality looked better. It tasted better. My strawberries were juicier. I got my lettuce there, my carrots there. And like I have been eating the same thing every single day on this gut protocol. And like my chicken soup that I made, like it literally tasted better. It was crazy. So once again, I think that that's just like a true, like a testament to like the quality and the freshness of it. And then lastly, like obviously nothing can possibly be homegrown gardening, because you're in control of what goes on your food, and you're not going to be spraying it with pesticides and wax and coatings and things like that. Like you just pick it out of the ground and eat it. So you're obviously picking it when it's ripe at its peak and the most nutrient dense, and you're not going to be exposed to all those nasty toxins and, chemicals and all of that. So just wanted to share all of that. I think I'm going to cut it off here, but just kind of wanted to shed light on what's going on with our food and just help you make the best decisions where possible. Don't panic about it. Don't, feel like you have to be perfect with this by any means. This is just to give you some information so that you can, make the best choices for you and your family. And so at the end of the day, like as long as you're not spraying bug spray all in your house and everything, like I would start there. Like I know that a lot of us use bug spray, so limiting that exposure is good. Paying attention to your water quality is good. Getting water filters, prioritizing whole foods over everything. Anything that comes from the ground when you are in the grocery store, anything on the perimeter, on the outside walls of the grocery store is ideal, because if that's going to be your produce, that's going to be your meat. All the things that are fresh. Anything that is fresh, that's where we want to be. Obviously, we all eat processed foods, I'm a ice cream girly, all of that. That's not saying to never do it. It's just saying prioritize whole foods 80% of the time, and then 20% of the time have the sweet treats and the fun treats and stuff. And buy organic where possible, or the farmer's market is ideal, or start a garden and, follow along with me, and I'll tell you how to do that once I get going. And then washing your produce. I forgot to go into washing the produce and how to do that. And then reducing any unnecessary plastic exposure with your food. So like no heating your food up in plastic, whether that's plastic bowls and plates, or like in like the food packaging that you buy. Like for me, I buy a lot of the frozen rice, and it is in a plastic packet, and I put it straight into the microwave. Like I still do that, and I need to stop doing that. I'm not, once again, it's not going to be perfect, but just doing better and, being better. So really quickly, I thought I was going to sign off. I was looking up how to wash the produce most effectively. And so a couple of tips for you, and then I'll let you go. But it was saying it's best to be done right before you're about to eat it or prep it, and not right after buying. A lot of people get home from the grocery store and want to wash and cut it so that it's easy and accessible. If you're going to eat it within like the day or two, like that's fine, but cutting it prematurely exposes it to moisture, which actually makes it like spoil and go bad faster. And then I was finding that a baking soda soak is most ideal. So one teaspoon of baking soda per 2 cups of water and soaking it. It also was saying that if you don't have baking soda, you can do 1 part vinegar to 3 parts water, and soaking it in that, and then rinsing it with cold water. And you can also scrub your produce. It was saying firm produce like apples, potatoes, cucumbers, carrots, you can actually get like a brush, and like almost like the brushes that you see for washing your dishes, but like make it a produce only brush to scrub it off really good. Obviously with things that are softer like tomatoes, strawberries, peaches, things like that, they were saying just to rub it gently with your hands under the cold water. And then also, instead of like what I have always done is just let it sit out and like air dry, it was saying to actually dry it with a clean cloth or a paper towel, because drying it actually further reduces any bacteria that can remain on it after rinsing. So the more you know. Okay, I think that's it. Make good choices. Love you always. See you guys next week. Bye.